YouTube, my name's Sean Connors and welcome back to Let's Build an RPG. This week we're going to focus on the path of stealth and we're going to look at that in a little bit of detail, and also there should be enough time at the end to cover off a couple more pieces. Originally I had intended to do a sort of a feedback and recap bit here, but I think it's, as we're so close to the point where we can do a dry run for putting the character together, I don't think we'll do that at this stage. I think it's better that maybe over the weekend I'll have the opportunity to show you a character being built, and I'm going to just pick one of many possibilities that one can take and just roll the character up and show you what it's like to do that in this system so far. Then we can do further dry run videos starting next week where we look at a couple of aspects like combat, healing, things like that, and how the game progresses, so you can get to see how the little nuances build on each other. So this week, the path of stealth. I'll show you the path of stealth. I apologise that at the top of it says the path of the assassin. That was the original name for it, but of course that's just really corny and rubbish, and it really is the path of stealth. As I said originally, I do all my stuff, all my ideas come on note form initially, and I can tell you that the book is being built in the background by one of our own on YouTube actually, and I'm sure I'll leave him to do his own introductions when he's ready. He's kindly helping us put the book together. That's going to accompany this series and ultimately be used as the basis for the entire RPG. So I'm quite excited about what he's doing and the work that he's put in, but I'm not going to name him yet. I think he'll do that for himself. Anyway, let's have a look at the path of stealth. Now, the way I figured the path of stealth is the fact that you have to remember route one is we always resort back to theme and tone. And it struck me that one of the most obvious starting points, because there are quite a lot of skills that fall into the path of stealth, that certainly are background skills, would have to be this skill here. So you'll see the path, and there are two starting points. We have one here and one here. Now, this one here is the first skill, is search or disguise. Those are the two primary building skills that most rogues build off. Now, the reason for that, particularly disguise, is the fact you have to think about the theme and tone. It makes tremendous sense to have skills around making you look like something completely different, blending you into those races that you're not one of. That can be incredibly important. Okay, they probably do it very limitedly, and probably if ever they'd never want to do it at all, but it's the primary skill that's taught, and that sort of makes sense. Search, of course, is a necessity because you think about the environment. This isn't just necessarily searching for traps and things like this. This could have other implications, this skill. So those are the two starting points. Now, if you start with search, it's the only way you can lead off. It's the only way you can lead off into things like find and remove traps and open locks, which makes a lot of sense. And then disguise, there are two ways of disguise. It gets quite a complicated path, this, and I'll put it up to the camera so you can see in a little bit more detail. So you can just take it in for a few seconds. There you go. You've got track, which can also be accessed through search. And on the opposite side of disguise, you have mingle. So mingle is the ability to... You've got disguise, now mingling in with people of that kind. So that might be actually to blend into a crowd. It might be to not appear out of place. All sorts of things. I thought it was quite a nice idea. Then off mingle, you've got hide, which can ultimately lead back in towards sneak, which is also just after track. Then we have ambush. Then we have alchemical research. We also have off sneak. We have the ability to trail someone. So find your prey or trail something you've come across. And then finally, after alchemical research, you have assassination, and there are at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 steps before assassination. Now I'm just going to pick out a couple of skills here on this path and talk about them in detail. I'll also explain a few of the costs associated with them as well. I won't go into too much depth, but if we take assassination, the way that assassination will work in this game, every path ultimately has something very unique to it. I think we've seen that. Obviously the path of magic ultimately leads on to runes, which there are multiple fantastic things of that, because obviously there's spell access, there's the ability to make things. I think that's pretty exciting. I don't think it gets much more exciting than that. Then of course in combat it's the only path that ultimately leads off into having more than one attack, and the path of the rogue will ultimately be the only path that leads on to actually a one-hit potential takeout, which I kind of like. I think it's quite interesting. It's quite different than a lot of things I've seen, so I think it's really nice. So anyway, how would it work in play? So the way I visualise it is when somebody rolls a d6, for every 2 ranks you have in assassination, basically means that it's 1 easier to assassinate the target. So what does that actually really mean? So for example, you've rolled a 6, then you've got 2 ranks in assassination. That means if you roll another 6, yeah, you would actually do an assassination. You take someone out with basically 2 rolls of a dice. If you had 3 or 4 ranks, you take someone out on a 5 or 6. If you had 5 or 6 ranks, you take someone out on a 4, 5 or 6, and so on, to ultimately, on a 6, you will remove someone. That's how potent it should be. I like it. It's deadly, it's devastating. It sort of kind of works. Of course, it's not guaranteed you're going to, it's not guaranteed because you might have the skill to do it, but you've obviously got to hit anyway. So there is certain things that can kick in before you land that critical blow. But that's the idea or the theory behind it. Naturally, I think there can be a few things that play, and obviously assassination can only work if you've actually physically hit someone. You have to do physical damage of some kind for it to actually be considered an assassination. But I think it's the theory behind it should hold up under dry play or close proximity playtesting. So that's part of one of the skills. Most of the others are, I think, fairly straightforward. I think we've all seen them before. But one part to this I'd like to touch on here is something that's irked me for an incredible long time in gaming. I like the rogues in my games. I don't like systems like in the kindest way to Pathfinder. It's the best one I can use because it still follows the traditional D&D format, where it takes 3 or 4 minutes to open a lock. Now in combat, you need a rogue to be able to do that in seconds, not minutes. So in my game, it can be done in seconds. It's just more difficult, and I think that's a really nice way of doing it. And it's an easy way of doing it as well, because if you're in a combat situation, what you can do is actually insist the player take 2 rolls and take the worst. I think that's a lovely way of putting the pressure on the player without really creating, making it impossible, because their skill will ultimately give them the better chance. But that's the sort of mechanic I can see in play here, which can be used for things like the rogues. So again, you can see how it's sort of going to work. The sort of costs of these things are things like disguise would be like 100 XP per rank, tracks 150, search is 200, 5 and remove traps is 250, open lock, sneak, hide 150, ambush 250, trowel 200. Alchemical research and assassination are both 300 each. On the part of alchemical research, that's a bit like alchemy lore that exists in the path of magic. It's like being able to build things like smoke bombs, flash, explosive, the sort of thing you see with ninjas where they make an explosion, a flash, to blind people. That sort of thing. That's what I visualise alchemical research being able to do. Of course, there is work to do to put the flesh behind it, but those are the skills that are going to exist in the path of stealth. Now we have a little bit of time at the end of this video to cover off a couple of other things, and I think the one we'll cover off because it's apt tonight will be luck. Now we've talked about luck, and we've spoke about how luck is generated before in previous videos. I won't cover that ground here, but what I will do and go on and say is this: I've sort of thought about the mechanic around luck, and the one that seems to work very well in playtest, and I'd like you to have a think about it as well here. Any thoughts and comments on it, always greatly received, they are passed on, is this. We think that one of the fun bits to the game can be that people can use luck in a very unique way. Depending on the luck score, the way we visualised it in playtest was 1 to 6 points of luck mean that you can have 1 dice. 7 to 12 points of luck mean that you can have 2 dice, and I'll explain what this means in a minute. And then from 13 to 18 means that you can have 3 dice. Now what that means is that you can risk 3 points of luck. So for example, if you want to really make something happen, you can say, well actually, I'm going to use full 3 points of luck here. So instead of rolling 1 dice, you'd actually roll 4d6 and take the best result. Now the odds are you should be able to do it, because obviously the favour food to you. But if it doesn't work out, because you've risked 3 points of luck, you lose them permanently. I like that. Now I don't know what you're going to think of it, but it's the mechanic that we've been playing out in dry play testing. Of course, caution has to be given because people do tend to get very risky with characters. But as a mechanic, it stands up very well in playtest and seems to be very interesting. And dice are fickle things, particularly d6s, and we have seen some very extreme results. It's not a guarantee it's going to work for you, which is great because it really hits home. So there's a level of risk, like there is in anything, when you test your luck. It seems to work. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there this week. Look forward to your feedback. Take care of yourselves and happy gaming. Bye-bye.